Welcome back to an episode of Just Say Guay. I'm your host, George Guay. Today I'm joined by Brian Pinho of the Washington Capitals. Brian, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so how have you been, man? I mean, these have probably have been a crazy last few months for you, getting your career started in the NHL and the bubble and preparing for that. How have you been?
I've been good. Obviously, it was an early knockout for us, but a little disappointing in that sense. But I've been pretty good, man. I got back like 3 weeks ago from the bubble, and took a little time off, but just recently started skating and working out again, and kind of getting back into it.
Yeah, it must be a good feeling to get back into it, preparing for the next season. So let's backtrack a bit. You went to St. John's Prep. You're from North Andover. What was your recruiting process like, especially growing up with a lot of great schools in the Boston area, and what ultimately led you to go into Providence College?
So I went 4 years at St. John's Prep. I want to say my end of my sophomore year, junior year, I started getting looks from colleges. And a lot of the colleges that were looking at me were mostly like the Northeast colleges, whether that's, the Ivies or Hockey East or whatever. And so I kind of just, you know, got introduced to Nate Lehman of Providence, and we kind of hit it off. And I went to school there a few times. I did an official visit there, and I loved the guys. That was pretty big for me. That was kind of like the selling point, because a lot of the schools are pretty same in that sense of like, nice locker rooms, good schools, blah, blah, blah. But when I was able to meet some of the current players at Providence, that was kind of the selling point for me. And that's where I decided to end up.
Yeah, it's something I definitely admired about you guys when I was watching the team at school. You guys seemed like a very close group, and I definitely led to success on the ice. So you were asked to be a big contributor as a freshman. A lot of minutes. What were challenges of doing that as a freshman? Because in college sports, it's something that not a lot of people are asked of to do.
Honestly, I think the most challenging part was that we had such a great team. We had really good players who weren't playing in the lineup, which is a good thing, I guess, in a sense of that's how deep your team is. But I think what was hard for me, and kind of I remember I would get shifted on lines and whatnot, and just because I was pretty inconsistent. So I guess as a young player in college and even in pro, one of the most important things is just being consistent and, playing the games that or the style that you know how to play, and, bringing it every night.
That's a good answer and mindset to have. So I got to ask, what was it like winning the national championship in your first year, especially the circumstances, advancing to the Frozen Four in Providence, defeating the heavily favored BU team that had the best player in college hockey. What was that like?
I mean, yeah, it was really cool, because it was funny because that whole weekend we got knocked out in Hockey East early to UNH, and they were good that year. They played us really well, but even with that loss, we were supposed to qualify for the NCAA tournament like pretty easily. And I remember we were all watching in D-Trag. You remember that building?
That's where I lived sophomore year.
Okay, yeah. So we were all in there, kind of watching like the championship weekend, and all the teams that were supposed to be winning that would help us lost. So it came down to like Michigan versus Michigan State, and Michigan ended up winning with a couple minutes left, which got us in at the 16th seed or whatever. But we should have been in easier than that. But anyways, we play in Providence. We have just crazy fans, crazy students. Everyone's there. It was basically a home game for us, which a lot of people weren't happy about. And then we got to play, at the Frozen Four, and I think we played really well against Omaha in the semis. We kind of gave it to them pretty good, and then BU was a really good game, obviously, with Jack, and but I think John Gillies played unreal for us, and that was kind of the deciding factor.
Yeah, so that was definitely the game that changes the culture for Providence College hockey. I mean, anytime you win a national championship, it definitely does. I got there the year after you guys won it, and there's more fans. You guys are getting the program's getting better recruits. There's more alums in the pros. How did it feel to be a part of that team that changes the culture forever?
It's pretty cool, man. Honestly, you think about it now and you think about the team that we had. I think we have like, I don't know what the stat is. Someone tweeted out, but like eight guys from that team have played in the NHL, and which is pretty good. That's a lot of players, and I think just every team after that team at Providence has just been, qualifying for the tournament and just a really good team and really good kids. And that's what I think Nate does a really good job of. Is he not only does he get good players, he gets guys that want to be a good teammate and want to win and want to work hard, and that's why they're so good every year.
Yeah, I agree. Over the years, it's always been a championship or bust mentality, and you got to have that. And they're putting the right pieces on the ice to make that happen. So I got to
Right.
ask about the national championship game with Jack Eichel. I'm from Bedford, and he worked at the hockey store in my town, and a lot of my friends that played hockey growing up knew his name. But was the game plan really to contain him, or just contain BU as a whole?
Um, we knew, how good he was or still is, but I think honestly we had that line of Kevin Rooney, Brandon Tanev, and Steve McParland kind of shut that line down, their first line, because they had O'Regan too, and um, they had some really good players. So I thought they did a really good job of shutting that line down or as much as they can, and then allowing the other guys, our first two lines, to kind of go out and try to score, which was somewhat of our game plan. But it's also difficult in college because it's there's guys that are really really good, and it's tough to just focus on one guy. You can't really play the game like that. You got to kind of just treat everyone the same. And obviously there's those guys that are incredible, but I think it was more important for us to just play our game. And if when we were out there with them, you had to shut them down, kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it won't be something. Excuse me. It will be something you won't forget forever. It was that was actually my accepted students day. Was the day of the
Oh
national
yeah.
championship. Yeah, so the place was buzzing.
Yeah.
Made you really excited that hey, if there's ever a big hockey game or March Madness, like this is what it's going to look like. So
Right.
um,
They actually didn't even let us go back to school that night because it was so crazy. We had to stay in the city.
yeah, I wanted to stay, but my dad said to me, "You can stay, but you're not. I'm not coming to get you," because he knew that it would be crazy,
Yeah.
especially since it's the first one.
Right.
So I got to ask, even as tough as it was, how your career at Providence ended, how satisfying was it to see that group come back next year and advance to the Frozen Four? Because I think you see in sports sometimes uh, teams have a hard time coming back from a loss like that. And Coach Lehman and the team, they really rose to the occasion and um, did what they could to get back to that moment and, win it.
Yeah, I mean, that just, alludes to what I had said earlier about him and the types of kids that he gets. It's just he gets good hockey players, but he gets better people and better workers and guys that want to be on a team and want to be a good teammate. And that's what makes them so good, is that everyone on the team is like a brother. And like you pointed out earlier, like how we looked like we were so close, and when just from watching in the stands, you can tell. Um, that's why Providence is so good, and that's why I'm happy to be an alum, not because of how much success we had on the ice, but just the guys that I'm best friends with for life, and it's pretty cool to think about.
Yeah, for sure. So before you get to the Capitals, you signed your pro contract and you spent some time with Hershey. So what did you want to accomplish before you made the jump to consistently be with the Capitals?
I knew, so coming out of school, I knew I kind of had a pretty good two-way game, and I knew I was going to spend time in the American League. It doesn't happen often where guys just go right up and make an impact right away. Um, so for me, I just kind of wanted to focus on things that can help me move up the ladder and kind of solidify a spot in the NHL, and that's being a good two-way player and scoring when I get the opportunity or making good plays. And I've always taken pride in being a penalty killer. I love the power play, but that's not really my forte. But so PKing is pretty important to me too. And I don't know, man. I just think my first year pro, I was a huge adjustment for me, and I think I struggled a bit at the start, and then last season going into training camp, I kind of just felt more confident, more comfortable, and kind of just took off and just did what I was good at and tried to focus on that every day.
That's a good answer. So I've seen throughout the bubble, especially the teams that made the bubble, they brought in a lot of guys that were, from the AHL roster, like yourself. I forget who the Maple Leafs brought in, but a lot of teams did that. Jake Ottinger just made a start, the Dallas Stars. What was the process like before, making the bubble roster? Were you told pretty much to stay ready even though the AHL season got canceled?
Yeah, so it, it was really confusing at the start when the season got canceled. So the NHL got canceled before us in the AHL, and then I don't know. We kind of just had this feeling that it wasn't going to happen again. Our season, the American League, I mean, and so like we waited there for a week and a half or 2 weeks, and then finally our coach was like, "Okay, you guys can go home, or you can move out of your apartments or at your own risk, like if we came back, but we all knew we're moving out of our apartments. Like this is going to be a while. But as soon as our season was done and he had given us the okay to go home, our head coach, I mean, he had called me and said, "Hey, you're going to be going to Washington no matter what." So that was kind of in the back of my mind, the whole start of quarantine, like through the thick of it. I was, trying to find ice everywhere I could, which was very difficult. And, trying to stay in shape without being able to go to a gym, which is also tough. But I think I did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think it's admirable how you guys are able to make it work, no matter what sport you play. That, most guys stayed ready and they did the right thing. So, this wasn't your first time, being with the Caps. You skated with them before. Played a couple preseason games, but this is the first time that you had your shot at making your debut. So I got to ask, what's it like walking into the locker room? You see Alex Ovechkin, best goal scorer of this generation, Nicholas Backstrom, best distributor in the league, one of them, and TJ Oshie, who one of the most clutch performers we've seen in the playoffs and the Olympics, and even John Carlson, one of the top defensemen. Do you feel like that? Being in that locker room, you can pull something from each of them to, help yourself and have a great learning experience?
Yeah, for sure. I think, it's pretty cool to look around and see those guys in the dressing room and guys that I've been watching since I was a kid. But, during the game, I'm not focused really on that. Even before the game, I'm kind of just focused on myself and what I need to do. I would say in practice is kind of when you take a look around and pick up this and that from certain guys. But during games, I'm kind of just focused on myself and what I need to do. And everyone's kind of like that too. We kind of have fun, play soccer and stuff before the games. And then once it gets down to it, everyone's focuses in and, gets themselves ready and prepared.
It's a good answer, and it must be awesome, to be around those guys and good leaders that have shown they can win. So, August 16th, 2020, in historic circumstances in the bubble, you make your NHL debut. How did it feel to, walk in the locker room and see that white jersey with your last name on it?
It was pretty cool. The day before, Todd Reardon had came up to me before practice and said, "Hey, you're going tomorrow," and I literally was nervous right there on the spot, and we hadn't even practiced, and it was 24 hours away. I was like, "Oh God, I'm in one here," but it was, I ended up telling a few people, and then everyone knew about it. So the night before, I was kind of getting a lot of texts and whatnot, which didn't. It's nice to know you have support, but at the same time, I knew all these people were watching, so it made me a little nervous. And before the game, like you said, I walked in and it was just. But I had been taking warm-ups for a bit. So I was kind of used to it, which made me feel more comfortable, which was nice. So I wasn't completely foreign to going in and just putting on my gear and playing. But yeah, it was pretty special. And, after warm-ups, I felt ready and confident. I was still a little nervous, but not nearly as nervous as I was before the game.
Yeah, it was very exciting. I was very excited, especially to see a Friar not only make their NHL debut, but, for my favorite team. And it was very special to see that happen. So what are you taking going forward from that? You make your debut, you see kind of like what a full game, especially in crazy circumstances, is like. What are you just trying to take going forward for when your name's called next?
Yeah, I think the next step for me is to push and make a roster spot, and I'm pretty confident in my abilities, but I know it's not going to be easy, and it's the National Hockey League, so there's going to be plenty of competition, and yeah, that's my goal, man, just for the summer to keep working and keep doing what I'm doing and try to make the team out of camp, and that would be pretty cool if I'm able to do that.
Yeah, so I got to ask, as a Capitals fan, how excited should people be going forward? Ovechkin clearly showed that he still has a lot left in him. Backstrom and Kuznetsov and Oshie show they still have a lot in them. Carlson's one of the best defensemen in the league, a great young core. And you really can't go wrong with either goaltender and new coach that has proven that he can win at the NHL level. How excited, should the fans be?
They should be very excited. I think the leadership that they have in the locker room is pretty incredible. Just the stature of some of the players and the amount of games played those guys have is unbelievable. They have a lot of guys that have won cups before on, say, a different team or with them in 2018. So they know how to win. They know what they need to do. They're always one of the best teams in the league for the entire season. So they know what to do. It's just it's a matter of, getting it done in the playoffs, which I think they will, because you look at their roster, they have some of the best guys in the league. But as a fan, you should be very excited, and I think that they're going to be great for the next few years for sure.
Yeah. Well, Brian, really appreciate you for coming on my show. Best of luck going forward, and we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yep, no problem, man.